Hello and welcome. My name is Gildo. I'm the technical director for CDBI and I'll be the host here today for the webinar. Thanks to everybody for being here. Case in point here today, I hope everybody is safe and sound, staying at home and taking care of friends and family. I think that's the most important part right now. Uh, but this, however, gives us an opportunity to maybe have a bit of extra time on our hands. So glad that you guys were able to take this time out from your day and we'll find out about the lockdowns situation and how to implement lockdowns in the Atrium product line. So let's get this show on the road. Just to give you a heads up, if you've never attended one of my seminars before, during the seminar, I'll be presenting the situation, the lockdown, how to set it up, and all that. During that whole process, if you haven't already noticed, you will be muted out, so we can prevent any feedback from your background noise in your offices, in your homes, and so on and so forth from feeding back into the webinar audio stream, if you will. So if you are trying to speak at this point, I can't hear you and nobody else can hear you. So what I'll do is once the webinar, the presentation is finished, I'll give everybody a chance to ask their questions. I'll open up the microphones for each and every one of you individually if you have any questions. So during the webinar, during the presentation, if you have any questions, just note them down. And once we're done, we'll have the opportunity to ask those questions. So bear with us. And once again, thanks for being here. Uh, on screen here, you're seeing the cdvi.ca website in the CDVI Academy webinars menu, if you will. And just wanted to highlight that there will be another webinar today, and we'll be doing these webinars regularly in the next short while. Hopefully, we will get back to normal sooner rather than later, but until that happens, look to us to be able to provide some content through these webinars. So just come check this page here on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and you'll see what's up and coming for the webinars. Just give me a second here. Okay. Uh, all right. So I just want to give you a quick rundown, if you will, of the lockdown configuration. So what we're doing with the Atrium product is this lockdown feature. So, feature will help us to manage a crisis situation. Um, and to be able to monitor the situation in real time if need be. So you do have interaction with the system as things happen and so on and so forth. So managing the lockdown, and to begin with, how do we initiate or start or end the lockdown? There are several different options open to you, as we see here on the screen. You can use cards. Any card, as far as the Atrium system is concerned, provided it could be a card or a PIN number. It's a user in the system. So any user can be configured, if you will, to be able to start or stop a lockdown, to do one or the other, to do both, and so on and so forth. So you can use cards, so different readers throughout a building, a special reader in a particular room, just some any reader in all the rooms. It all depends on what you want to do. So any reader can be used, and by default, the when we implement the lockdown, all the doors in the system will be included in that lockdown. Now, this is an option that we've enabled by default. And through the door menus, you can, if you prefer, to have a door not be part of the lockdown if you prefer. So it's an option that you can, it's a checkbox that you enable by default. The system enables that checkbox when you put your lockdown into effect. And if you want, you can program the system to say, certain doors I do not want to be part of the lockdown. Maybe just the perimeter doors is the one that concerns us in this particular building, so on and so forth. So with cards, now with that, when you're doing with cards, a couple different flavors that you can use to say, okay, when we're going to use the cards, how are we going to start the lockdown? How are we going to stop the lockdown? You can either select specific cards and say, these cards, when we swipe a card, it'll start the lockdown. Will I require that the person having that card double swipes the card, or is just a single swipe? So do you need to swipe the card twice at the reader to initiate lockdown? Or is it we've decided that we're going to put a reader in a special area, maybe at the vice principal's office in the building, and there's a reader right at the desk there. So if anybody has any issues, see someone walking in, and we want to initiate lockdown, just swipe your card at that reader at that desk, so on and so forth. You could also indicate that, well, wherever it is, if you want another possible solution, if you will, is we want to initiate lockdown with cards, but you need to double swipe the lockdown. So in our particular situation, we don't care which reader you're at, could be any reader in the building, whichever cards that we have flagged, if you will, as a lockdown card, you will need to double swipe the card in question or cards in question to activate the lockdown. Last but not least, chaperone is the third option when you're doing with cards. Is you will need to have two individual cards, in other words, two people to either initiate the lockdown, or I think more reasonable, if you will. It all once again, it all depends on whatever the site requires. But to end the lockdown, to end the crisis, you might want to be able to confirm. So you might want to say, well, before we end the lockdown crisis, we need to have two people that will be able to confirm, yes, the crisis is now done. So let's use this chaperone option to be able to end the lockdown. So if in my little world here, this CDVI technical trainer called Gildo. Maybe we want to use the cards, and it could be any reader. You got to double swipe your cards, and maybe it's the staff, the certain first responders, or so on and so forth, security people that have this option, or is it everybody that has that option? Anybody has a card can do it. Well, you need to double swipe your card if ever you see a perpetrator in the building, and you think there's a crisis, a lockdown crisis that needs to be initiated. Well, by all means. Uh, so that covers pretty much the realm of initiating or stopping the lockdown with cards. You can also do it through, as we see here, the second bullet point, through the software, the ATRIUM software, or in the browser. So when you connect to the system, so in the interface, whether it's the web server, the ATRIUM web server, or the ATRIUM software, the operator will be able, that's logged into the system, will be able to uh, initiate or stop the lockdown through the interface. Now, with that said, if you are going down that road, and one does not defeat the other. So I could say I want cards, the software, if there's an operator, I want them to be able to do it. We have emergency buttons. All of these can be used together if you want, or individually, or whichever you prefer. So coming back to the software browser, when we want to initiate, so I've logged into the Atrium system, and I want to start the lockdown. I will be able to initiate that when I click on the button, if you will, in the interface to start the lockdown. Do I need to provide my login password to initiate or to stop the lockdown? So this just confirms if you want to an operator to start or stop the lockdown, do they need to provide their password to initiate that sequence? Okay. And that's your login password when you log into the system. Last but not least, I think this will be probably the most common option with emergency buttons. So located throughout the building or specific areas, so on and so forth. These buttons will be able to be used to start or stop the lockdown. Now, any card, as I mentioned, if we go to the cards option to start and stop lockdown, can be a lockdown card. And there are four different kinds of lockdown card. And in fact, we've created, as we see here, a kit, if you will, a lockdown card kit, and you see the part number there. And these cards, there's other than the fact that they're CDVI cards and they have these nice graphics printed on them, they are standard access cards. So once again, you do not have to have this particular type of card to be able to do your lockdown in your particular building. However, this is for convenience, for ease of use, and so on and so forth. you can purchase these cards through distribution channels, and these cards will be able to be implemented in any system. So as we see, the top left and bottom right are your start and end lockdown, start and stop lockdown cards. And we also have from the bottom left to top right, two other cards that are part of this kit. Um, Going from the top right here, the grant access card. So when we've initiated lockdown and we're in the lockdown crisis, what the grant access and the area secure cards are used for is for your first emergency response team, your SWAT team that's in the building to try and apprehend the perpetrator and evacuate the school and so on and so forth, the building. So while we're in lockdown, as soon as lockdown is initiated, all the cards in the system stop working. Okay, so this is an important point. The only cards that will continue working are the cards that we have flagged, and I'll be showing you how to do this, that we have set up in the system. We have flagged to have these four options here. Okay. Um, all the other cards, the students, the staff, and so on and so forth, whatever you want to call them, will not be able to access the doors. The doors themselves, if they happen to have been at the time we initiate the lockdown on an unlock schedule, the unlock schedules on all the doors, if there are any, will be overridden. All the doors will become secure. In addition to that, the readers on the doors, if you have the CDVI readers with the blue background LED status on the readers will start blinking red and blue very quickly. So at the door level, if I'm looking down the hallway where there's classrooms, for example, if I take a school as a building, a scenario here, as I'm looking down the classroom, each classroom has a card access, has a reader. So when I initiate the lockdown, all the readers in that hallway will start blinking red and blue very fast. This is a visual indicator at the door that we are now in lockdown. Okay. Now, as the first responders, I'm getting to the grant access and area secure cards. We will be able to flag certain cards, and these first responders have these cards. Either they can have them in a special lockbox outside the building, maybe they have them in their at the emergency services office, the police, the fire department, whoever needs them, you can offer them these cards. And when they get into the building, they will be able to unlock the door, grant access. The door will unlock even though there is a lockdown uh, in effect at this point in time. The door will unlock for 5 seconds, permitting the first responders to enter the room. So once they get into the school and into a classroom to evacuate that particular classroom, they will be able to unlock that door and go into the classroom, do their job, evacuate the children. And once the classroom has been cleared or secured, they will then be able to use, if you will, the area secure, the yellow card that we see here on screen. And this is just a status indicator to say that this particular room that we just evacuated has now been cleared. It's secure. The room is locked, and we want to be able to ascertain, if I look down that hallway, which rooms have been cleared. The rooms that have area secure, that when I swipe my area secure card at the door, when I've cleared that room, the reader, instead of blinking red and blue very fast, will start blinking red and green, blue and green very fast. So once again, visual indicator, red and blue, flashing very quickly, that room has not been secured. We can unlock the door for that room with the grant access card, the orange card here. Once we've evacuated the people inside that room, we can then swipe the area secure card to indicate to the system that this room has been evacuated. And also at the door itself, at the reader itself, the reader will start blinking blue and green in the same rapid fashion. So blue and green or blue and red. Blue and green, area secure, blue and red, we still have to evacuate that room. Okay. Uh, Look, screen chapter here. There's not too many slides here. I think this is the second to last. When we initiate the lockdown option, this is the web interface of the ATRIUM system. The lockdown menu appears only after I've I've implemented the lockdown option in the system. So if you have not, if you've installed an ATRIUM and you have not activated the lockdown option, when you go into the web browser, you will not see the lockdown menu. Okay, it's after you've activated the option that you will see this appear. When you have this set up and you want to start the lockdown, I was saying you can use the operators when they log in. You simply go to the lockdown menu and click the start lockdown button. If you've required that they provide their password, a window will pop up asking them to enter their operator password to initiate or stop the lockdown, depending on which case it may be at the time. Now, once the lockdown has been activated, if you will, the menus um, offered on the screen are minimized, if you will. There is not as many menus. And the key menus are your areas menu and your doors menu. And here we have a snapshot of the area. So when we're in lockdown, the status of our areas in the building, and each area is a door, is a room, in other words. So you'll be able to see in real time um, if this area is in lockdown or not, and if it's been secured or not. So you can interact with the menus in as an operator in real time. Here we're seeing the same kind of information, if you will, but this is in the software interface, so the Atrium software. And here we're seeing the doors. So when we're in the lockdown menu, the lockdown situation, the lockdown icon here it blinks, so it's very obvious that you are in crisis in lockdown situation, and we'll show you your status of your doors and your areas, and you can click on here. So that gives you a general overview of what the system does. And what I'd like to do now is to give you a live presentation, if you will, of this whole setup. So let me see here. To initiate lockdown very quickly, very basically, and have the whole building being able to go into lockdown if required, uh, the easiest and quickest way to initiate lockdown in the system is through the web browser. So this is a, if you will, a menu, the lockdown menu that will allow us to implement lockdown in the software. As the software is an advanced interface, um, we can initiate lockdown in the web browser and have it all ready to go, and it'll work. However, if we need to have extra options that we want to implement, the lockdown menu is more complete, if you will, in the software itself. So we'll start with the web interface showing how to activate it, and then later on we'll go into the software and show you the different bells and whistles, the different features that you can enable with the software for the lockdown option. So on my system here at home, I have two controllers, my four doors, in other words. So my master controller is the one that I always want to connect to. So just either double click it or highlight and go to web page to log into the system. And here we are in my system. Just to quickly here, I'll show you that I have four doors on my system. I have my users we just saw a moment ago, my areas, and so on and so forth. So to implement lockdown very quickly, very easily in the system through the web browser, you'll go to your hardware menu, go into your control panel. Now, if you have multiple controllers like myself, you select the master controller. This is the one you want to set up for your lockdown. So this is my master, the A22M. And scrolling down this menu, I see the lockdown option appear here, lockdown tab. Now, here's where very quickly we can set up our lockdown. So is the lockdown enabled? Yes or no? By default, it's no. I will click yes, and we'll explore a couple of different options here that are very straightforward. So to start the lockdown, uh, if we're going to do the operator, will the operators or an operator that has access to the system be able to initiate the lockdown? If so, do you want them to provide their password when they initiate or stop the lockdown? Yes or no? So as you can see, you can have at the start options, say no password required, but to stop it, you need your password, and so on and so forth. So the start and stop options work individually. So you can have the best of both worlds. If you say, we want, whenever you do this, if you log in and you want to initiate or stop the lockdown, you must provide your password, or just to, no, it's a crisis situation. There's a panic going on in the building. Yeah, if there's an operator that's logged in that wants to log in and start the lockdown, we don't need them to provide their password at that time. We want to simplify the process as much as possible, yada, yada, yada. So that's one of the options. Now, when we talk about the either the start or stop with the card and PIN options, this is where I was referring to in the presentation a few moments ago. Uh, if you're going to use cards or a user with a PIN number or keypad code to initiate the lockdown or to stop the lockdown for that matter, will it be a single card swipe? Or just put in your PIN number once. If your PIN is valid, it'll activate your lockdown. Do you want to have to put in double swipe your card? So the same card, swipe it twice at the reader. Do you need to enter your PIN number if you're using keypads twice to start? Or do you require to have two people? So if you're going to use the cards because you have readers, you need two different cards. Or if you have only keypads, you need two different PIN numbers. So this is where you can set up your system very easily and very quickly for your lockdown situation. Okay, so it's just a matter of going into the hardware tab, select your master controller, scroll down to the lockdown menu, set your options to your lockdown enabled to yes, and your start and stop options. Save. Okay, simple as that. So now, if I come up here, I now have my lockdown menu. Okay, I start my lockdown. Are you sure? And I am now in lockdown on my system. If I go to my doors menu, my doors are now in lockdown. On each door, I could, left click and grant access to that door. Okay. Now, when I grant access, the door will unlock for 5 seconds. Okay. In the areas menu, so each door has its area. So once the area has been secured, we simply click on the area in question and secure the area. Okay. Now, I just want to bring a little bit of additional information here. The area that I secured was the third in the list a moment ago, and now it's become at the end of the list. What we do in the interface here is we bring forward, if you will, all the areas or doors that are still in crisis situation, and the doors, the rooms, the areas that have been secured will list at the bottom. So show me the information that's most critical at the top of the list, and towards the bottom if need be. Well, then I can see my status of my other doors. Now, if happens to be, we can put an area back into an unsecure state if the perpetrator is running around the building, so on and so forth. So just because you secured an area does not mean that you can no longer unsecure an area, for example. Okay. So in real time interaction with your building regarding the lockdown. Now, regarding the cards that we were looking at a moment ago. So for a moment here, I'll just end the lockdown. Now it's asking me to provide my password. So I didn't need a password to log in, to start the lockdown, but I do need one to uh, end the lockdown situation on my system. And here we go. Okay. Now for the cards and the users that we were talking about, So let's go see the users. So let's tackle the operator. So how do I get an operator? Which operators will be able to log into the system and be able to initiate or stop the lockdown? That's in the operator menu and the user menu. So I created a bit earlier here, the user Gildo Morno, that's me. So I'm going to go into here and let me see here. Boom, lockdown, location, login. I think it's here. There we go. So the user, scroll down to the login tab for the user, and in the login section of the user, this is where you have your start and stop lockdown options. Okay, you also have, will he be able to, this user be able to grant access to a first responder at the door that does not have a lockdown card, and so on and so forth. So to grant access and to secure an area. So this is your lockdown scenario as an operator. When the operator logs in, does he have access to be able to initiate the lockdown or stop the lockdown? Yes or no? And can they, that operator also grant access to override the lockdown to permit the first responders to enter a locked room, a classroom, for example? And once the room has been evacuated, will the operator be able to secure the area? Now that's for the operators. Now for the cards, just let me see here. Let me go back to Gildo. Does Gildo have a card? Scroll down here. Let's see. Okay, so Gildo has a card. So maybe this would be instead of Gildo, first responders, emergency response team, whatever case may be. So these special people with their cards that we want to be able them to use the card. So in the card menu for the user. So before with the operator, we were talking about the login menu that we had the lockdown options. So that's the operator. Now, if we're going to be issuing using cards, so in the card menu for the users that we want to have this, the emergency response team, the security guards, the building administrators, and so on and so forth. So the people in the higher echelons and the responsible for managing the crisis. So we'll go to their user, go to their card that they're using, and will the card be used as a lockdown card? Now we see here, we have a start lockdown, a stop lockdown, lockdown grant to access. That represents the four statuses that we saw earlier with the lockdown card kit. If I can just put that back up on screen here. This one here, that refers to, oops, let me scroll down. There we go. That refers to these four cards right here. So the card that we're, the attribute that we're assigning to the card and the card information, the card menu for the user, start lockdown, stop lockdown, grant access, and area secure. That refers to these four different cards. So the card that we're, this user, will that be a start lockdown card? This user, will that be a end lockdown card to end the crisis, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's in the card menu for your users. That's the lockdown option. So with that said, the activating of the lockdown through the hardware menu, control panel, you simply go to the lockdown and you implement the lockdown, and then you choose if your operators in the system are going to be able to um, start and stop the lockdown and what the situation is with the cards. How do we start and stop the lockdown, and so on and so forth. Once we've done that, the lockdown menu becomes available. And here in the lockdown tab, it's just the same menu we saw a moment ago in the hardware. Since the lockdown is configured, now have it available here. And in our lockdown situation, I will be able to end and start the lockdown through here. So that's very quick, very straightforward. We have lockdown. This lockdown includes all the doors and all the areas in the building by default. Now going into the software, where we'll have a few extra options available to us in addition to what we've seen. So I just minimize this here and go into the software. I'm logged into the system right now, and in the dashboard, the lockdown menu is located over to the right in the configuration area. Since I've configured it in the web browser, I now have the option to start and stop lockdown here. But the configuration menu here gives us a bit more options than what we saw in the web interface a few moments ago. So the lockdown options here, we see for the starting of the lockdown. So we see the lockdown's been enabled. Do we need to have a double swipe, a single swipe, or a chaperone, double cards, two cards? How do we want to do that? Do we want to the user, if they log in, to provide their password when they want to start the lockdown, and for the stopping option, same options that we had before. Now, here's where we start getting into the more advanced features, if you will, that we didn't have in the software. I mentioned during the presentation that we could use buttons. So what we could do is we can assign lockdown inputs. Now, on the ATRIUM control panel, the A22 or the A22K, if you have the newer model, um, you have two auxiliary inputs available to you. We also have, if need be, an expansion module that'll add 10 inputs and 10 outputs, an expansion board, the AIOM. So if you have multiple buttons that you want to use to be able to initiate lockdown throughout the building, and there's not enough inputs on your boards, you can also acquire an AIOM to expand the number of inputs available. So here we are, the lockdown input. So this is one of the inputs that I'm going to use to indicate when that input changes status. What am I doing with this input when I'm pushing that button? So for example, we'll start the lockdown input to start the lockdown. So depending on the button. Second. Okay, that's what I was mentioning a bit earlier at the start, feedback coming in. So no big deal moving forward here. So depending on the button, is it a normally open or normally closed button? So what's the normal status? And what you're choosing here is when the normal status changes. So you either have, it's either or. That button, where did you connect it to on your control panels? Now, the auxiliary inputs that are available if you're doing request to exits and door contacts on your system, you have two spare inputs available on each panel. So on this panel, we have input 2, and we see on that same panel the door contact and request to exit inputs. So these two inputs, if you're familiar with the ATRIUM panel, located on the left-hand side of the panel when you look into the panel, just off to the second or third terminal block. The third terminal block on the A22 controller, A22K controller. These are where your auxiliary inputs and outputs are available to you. So you choose your input that you're connecting your button to, and when that input, when someone presses that button, what are we going to do? We are going to, in this case, start a lockdown. Save. Now you have multiple buttons connecting to different inputs, and each one will start the lockdown. And a matter of fact, you can also do the stop lockdown with the same option here. So instead of, we'll use the same input, and if it's open, we'll stop the lockdown. So reversing the stereo, it's a latch button. Is it a temporary button? So all that kind of stuff. So depending on the actual hardware, the button that you're using, what is the status that you're going to use to implement lockdown? Okay. Now, we can also, here we see the users, and this here is just a list of the users that I have in my system, and this reflects what we saw when I was in the web interface a few moments ago. So if you can go to the user menu, so this is basically a shortcut to the user menu in my dashboard. So from within the lockdown menu, bring me to the user menu, and here is where we can implement what the user will be able to do when he logs into the system. Okay, start and stop lockdown. So that's in the system login tab. And here are your start and stop lockdown options for the users. Okay. Now we also have cards. Once again, um, any card can be a lockdown card. So here what's it's listing is the list of all the cards that I have currently in my system. And you choose one of those cards. Okay. And now we have the lockdown option. So this is the card property, the card menu, what we're looking at up here. So once again, from the lockdown interface, I'm creating a shortcut to the card menu, and I've chosen this particular card. And here are my start and stop lockdown scenarios. Okay. Um, in the doors, so by default, all the doors, all the areas in the system are part of the lockdown. So if you want, you can, for example, in the garage door here, might not be one of the ones that I want to have locked down, whatever the case may be. So in the software menu, so in the doors, you go to the advanced option of your door, and the lockdown feature for that particular door is located here. So any door that you do not want to be part of the lockdown, simply go into the doors menu. If you're in the software, go to the advanced option and go to lockdown. Remove the lockdown enable. By default, this is on for all the doors in the system. Okay. And while we're here, granting access, you can interact with your doors and so on and so forth. Areas, once again, here's your information for your areas. Do you want it to be part of the lockdown? Yes or no? I think by default, these are options that are available to you. Will you be actually saying certain doors are not going to be part of the lockdown? Uh, I think more often than not, out of the right out of the box, probably that you want to have everything part of the lockdown, and then if need be, according to the needs of the building, maybe we can eliminate a couple out of that option. So that basically, ladies and gentlemen, gives you a good overview of the lockdown situation. Um, if you have elevators, they are also part. Now, in this particular system, I do not have an elevator setup, so the cabs option for the elevators is empty because it's not set up. But the same as your doors, which will the door be part, the elevator be part of the lockdown? Do we want to disable the reader inside there, and so on and so forth? Another thing that I think that is interesting and an option that should be implemented more often than not is to be able to trigger an email when when we initiate or stop the lockdown. Now, in the emails, okay, we can send an email to 3 individual addresses. Okay, it's one address per line here. Okay, I cannot put multiple addresses in the system. Emergency at service.com, for example. And the subject here is simply that's what you see in the subject title when you receive the email. Start lockdown, for example. In the message area, you might want to put the address of the building where the lockdown is occurring, maybe a emergency phone number or contact number, so on and so forth. Keep the message area, the message. I think the maximum amount of characters is 100 characters or 65 characters that you can input in that particular message, and that'll be included in your email. Now, the text of the actual event that's generated, so start lockdown by operator, for example, that will also be included. So the text that you'd see in the event in the system is part of the email, and the message here is in addition to that default text message, that default event message that comes with the actual email. Now, to send emails, the system, you do need to have set up the system to be able to send an email, have an email account to use, and that's done through the controller menu. So quickly here, hardware, go to system overview. And this is basically configuring your email setup. So your controllers, you can go into the controller properties and go to the email settings tab of the controller. And here you just input your information for your email account. So your SMTP dot, I don't know, for mildo.cdvi.ca, for example, whatever that case. So your network administrator, your ISP provider, they should all be able to give you that type of information that you need to get this information up and going. So basically, if we're using the system to fire off an email on any condition, in this particular situation, we're talking about starting or stopping the lockdown. While to fire off the email, the ATRIUM system needs to have access to an email account to be able to use that account to fire off the email. All right. So very straightforward, very simple, very powerful. While you're in lockdown, you can monitor your status. I'm going to start it here. So the window changes into my lockdown screen. I'm seeing the doors in my building. So this is through the software. So I can highlight the door and grant access to that particular door, so on and so forth. And as the door is being opened, as the door is being managed, you'll see all the information for that particular situation. So that covers the overview of the lockdown scenario. Okay, we'll call it done for the day. Appreciate everybody being here, and please take care of yourselves, and remember, wash your hands. Thanks much. Have a great day. Goodbye.